Uh, do you have any problem? Anybody having a problem in the last preceding lectures? If you do have any problem in the last lectures, then you may ask. All problems has been solved for the pre-examination. In the main examination, you have write the answers. All your answers were checked out. Nice. So you have to think about yourself that you have to solve your papers for the pre and mains examinations of all states. I don't think that if you are doing the preparation for the subjects, then any state having some privilege or some acts, these are different from the pattern of the examination. So if I am a teacher and you are studying me or you are listening me, then I think that you must be able to solve the problems openly. If you do not deserve to make yourself like me, then I don't think that you are deserving candidate for the examination. If you are the candidate who builds your label with me and height with me, and you are able to make an argument with me openly, then you shall qualify the examination. If you do not having such type of capacity or such type of labor to ask the questions with me, then I don't think that you are able to qualify your examination. So openly, this is the open session. You may ask any question from any act at any time with me. I'm not a teacher like another persons who have to see a booklet and have to solve your queries. You may ask if the lecture is finished. Next day, you may ask each and every question, whatever click in your mind. Don't be hesitate to ask any question like this is relevant or not. If the question is not relevant, I will tell you that the question is not relevant because it is covered by another act. But you must distinguish between two acts. Like if I am teaching the Criminal Procedure Code and some part is covered by the Evidence Act, then I will clarify you that such and subject is covered by the Evidence Act, not by the Criminal Procedure Act. If the matter is in relation to the Indian Penal Code and I am teaching you the Criminal Procedure Code, and if any question click in your mind that it is relevant to the Criminal Procedure Code, I will tell you that it is not relevant to the Criminal Procedure Code, it's covered by the Indian Penal Code, or it covered by the Evidence Act, or by any other act. So don't be hesitate to ask any question with me. Okay, now have to start. Okay, so today we are going to start the lectures on Evidence Act. First of all, before starting the lectures or before starting the classes on the Evidence Act, like starting the content of the Evidence Act, you must have to know what is the cause behind the establishment of the Evidence Act. What is the cause and what is the system? Why Evidence Act has been built out by the legislation and why it is made. So, as we all knows, the matter is started from the Indian Penal Code or any other penal laws, or in case of civils. Actually, Evidence Act is applicable in both the cases, civil as well as in the criminal cases. So this act is formed to help the judiciary. How? Actually, in case of criminal procedure and in case of civil procedure, both the procedures are relevant for the civil or as well as for the criminal cases. Distinguishedly, if the matter is in relation to the civil, then the procedure is given in the civil procedure, and if the matter is in relation to the criminal cases, then the procedure is given in the Criminal Procedure Code. But Criminal Procedure Code or Civil Procedure Code only provide the system, but not the content, that what evidence has to be collected and what type of evidence has to be submitted and how the evidence shall be worked and what will happen after recording the evidence. So we have to understood why the Evidence Act has been provided. See, if we think that this is not the Ramaraj, Actually, at the time of Ramaraj, each and every person was, whatever he told or claimed was true. If the first statement was came, then the person clicked their own heart and have to tell the truth. But this period, this era, wherever we are passing now, is a Kali Yuga. And if this is the Kali Yuga, means each and every person having their own version in regard of the truth. He present the truth, but by the another way. He want to tell the false, but likely to see as a truth. So, if this is the system right now, it means that court have to find out the truth from the statement is given by the person. Because this is not the Ramaraj, and no one, we expected that the person will tell truth in the court, but it is experienced from the long time that the person folds their statement according to their own version for the benefit of their client, or for the benefit of their own relatives, or for the benefit of their own. So if he is giving a version that is beneficial for himself, then who will find out, and how it shall be find out that whatever he is saying here, whatever he is presenting here, what the statement is given is true or false. To find out the truth, that what the person told in the court, the Evidence Act has been formed. If the Evidence Act was formed, then through this act and the provisions of this act, the ambiguities may be removed, and the truth has to find out. We have to find out the truth. How? If any person was given a statement in the court, then this statement is relevant or not, we have to find out through this act. If he has been giving the statement and that statement is so long, he want to take the time of the court, then court may ask to the person that tell here only the relevant portion, nothing else. Suppose a statement has to be given before the court in relation to the murder, and some eyewitness came here to give an statement that what was the matter and what happens actually there. But the person who are here to give a statement in the court to give a statement was giving the story of his history, that my forefathers was such and such, my father was such and such, my daughter is such and such, my son is such and such, my relations with that person is. These all are the irrelevant. These are the true. These statements are true, but not relevant with the case. So, if the person will told to the court the stories of his past and stories of their pater families and stories of their mother families and stories of their relatives, stories of the neighbors, stories of their business, it will take the time of the court. And I don't think that on the basis of such a statement, the court may came on any conclusion. That is why Evidence Act was formed, that what statement is relevant with our case has to be admitted. And the other statement, whatever you are giving, your version for your family, for your neighbors, for your business partners, for your dreams, for your pater families, for your elders, the court may ask to the person, don't give this version in this case. You have to give the version only that is relevant to the case and whatever we have to decide. On such a decision, your statement is relevant, it will help the court to decide. If your statement is not helping to decide the case, then the court may reply you, court may order you that this statement is not relevant, that is why it is not admissible in this case. So, where you will find these provisions? The provisions is provided in Evidence Act, that court is bound by their own version. the advocates are bound by their own versions through the Evidence Act, and what type of a statement has to be admitted, what type of a statement are relevant, what type of statements are only the statements, and what the statements are concluded as evidence. What are the proved, disproved or not proved statements, what facts are relevant, what facts has to be admitted, and what the facts has to came before the court. These all are given through the Evidence Act. So when we are in the Evidence Act, there is so many type of statements are here. What so many types of statements are here? Like what to do by the Evidence Act. First of all, we have to know that this act is procedural or substantive, first of all, because there is the distinction between the procedural and the substantive act, because the court is bound by the substantive law. The substantive laws will decide the right or duties of the party, but procedural will help to decide the right and duties. Means the substantive will decide that what are the right do you having, but procedural laws will help to decide such. Means these are only the helping acts. So in case of criminal procedure, these are the lubricant, they works like a lubricant. If bicycle is moving, it means their gears, their chains, their wheels are moving. But what is the role of grease and lubricants there? The grease and lubricants are used in the case of procedure, in case of the bicycle, to make easy for the bicycling. They make a smooth journey. They make to stress on less powers and move smoothly towards your object. These are the role of procedural law. So we have already studied what are the penal laws, what are the criminal laws, what are the criminal procedures. Now there is an act, those help the proceeding. That is called Evidence Act. Evidence Act basically is a procedural law, but technically if we will talk, this is procedural as well as the substantive. Mainly 90 to 95, 98% provisions are procedural, but some provisions are substantive also. How? The doctrine of estoppel. Doctrine of estoppel under section 114 of the Evidence Act. It will decide the rights of the party, that who having the right, who is bound by their own statements. Like some statements are already given in the court, then you are binded by your statement. Means for giving further statement, your right was binded already. Means it is curtailing your right to tell before the court, because you have already been given a version before the court. If you have already given the version before the court, then court makes it why you was giving at that time such a statement and now you are changing your statement. Doctrine of estoppel is applicable there, that you do not having a right to change your statement again and again. If you are changing your statement, then you have to give a reason why such a statement you are changing. So it's a substantive. The nature of this provision is substantive, which is deciding your right, that you have to change. You may change your statement or not. You may further give your new version or not. That is why we can say this is also the provisional, the procedure, substantive. So theoretically, if we will tell, this act is procedural, but technically if we will speak, this is substantive as well as procedural law. Now, can you tell it that this is lax 4E? Can you you have understood lax fori? You know what is the meaning of lax fori? Lax fori and lax loci. These are the two words. What? Lax fori and lax loci. Lax fori are the statements, lax fori are the provisions which governs the court. This Evidence Act is also lax fori, which govern the court, where the statement has to be given. Who will find out what is the truth and what is the false? That is the court, because the version was given before the police, or whatever the charge sheet is made by the police after giving after investigation. It may also be possible that the person and the person who is giving their statement is given in the dominant nature of the police. Forcefully, police was compelled that person to give such version before me. It may be possible because police having a danda. And if police having a danda, there is the fear of the police. And police is already of the dominating nature in surrounding area. That is why police said you have to give a statement in this form. The person gives it. Police may form a charge sheet according to their own version without getting the truthness of the case. So, who will find out the truth? What the police is correct or not? And accused is correct or not? In case of civil matters, the plaintiff is correct or the defendant is correct? Who will find out? This is the court. That is why Evidence Act was formed, and because it governs the court, that is why this act is lax fori. What? This is the lax fori. Lax fori means whatever the act which governs the court. And this act governs the court, that is why it is a lax fori. Okay. It also governs judges and magistrates, their limitations. It also governs judges and magistrates to their limitations, and because this is lax fori, it is applicable in the court only, but not in the arbitration proceeding. It's applicable in court only, not in the arbitration proceeding. So, in case of court, first of all, we have to find out what is the court, where the presiding officer, like a magistrate or judicial magistrate or the judicial judge is sitting, not the executive magistrate. It may cover the executive magistrate, but not of the binding nature, except the provision, whatever he has to decide, is not providing that the executive magistrate is binding by the Evidence Act. If the provision is not given, especially it is not binded the executive magistrate, this is not applicable. But in case the provision or the act on which the the magistrate has to decide is provided the provision that the executive magistrate is binded by the Evidence Act, then the magistrate is binded. And if the executive magistrate applies this act, it does not prohibit, it is for the help. It is to help the magistrate to find out the truth. That is why the executive magistrate, the judicial magistrate, and any other type of magistrate may get the help by this act, but the judicial magistrate is binded by this act. Judicial magistrate is binded by this act. So, we have to find out what are the evidence. Any statement is the evidence. Any statement is known as an evidence. If the statement is not relevant, then we can't say that this is the evidence. For evidence, Section 3 of the Evidence Act provide all statements. First of all, a statement, whatever is given before the court, all statements which the court permits or required. Means all the statement you are giving anywhere is not relevant, is not an evidence. Statements that is permits or required to be made before the court by the witness is an evidence. Means court have to decide what statement is required as, what statement court is giving the permission to give before the matter, and it is relevant to the fact and issue. It is relevant to fact and issue if the statement is given is relevant to the fact and issue and court required it that it has to be made before the court, or court permits such to give before me either in the inquiry or in the at the time of trial. That statement is evidence. Each and every statement is not a evidence at all. Because you are giving the statement that I having a child daughter of 4 years, but it is not relevant with our case, whatever the fact and issue. So this statement is true. This is where we can say that this is the statement, but this statement is converted into evidence. If it is not admitted by the court, or court is not required such a statement for their to decide on fact and issue, then such type of a statement cannot be converted in the evidence. To make it that this is the evidence, it must be related to the fact and issue, and court must be of the opinion that it is relevant to the fact and issue and it is required to decide the right and duties of the parties. So first thing is this is the statement. Then another evidence, two types of evidences may be produced before the court. One is the statement and another is the document. So all the documents either in the electronic records produced before the court for the inspection of the court, or whatever the documents is required by the court or permitted by the court to decide the issue, this document is also relevant and is called evidence. But each and every document is cannot be called as an evidence. Why? Because there may be the document may be true, but how it will decide that this is relevant? It is the court will decide it is relevant or not. It will help to decide the right and duties of the party. Whatever we have to decide, court has to decide on the issues. Then court may permit it to admit, court may permit it or court required to submit before the court for the inspection. So these two type of evidences we knows. Okay. Now whatever the evidences you are giving before the court, what type of evidences do you know? There is so many type of evidences are there, like oral evidences. Means the party has to came before the court and gave their statement before the court, and court think that this is relevant to the fact and issue. So oral statement, and I think that in the criminal cases oral evidences are the best evidence. Oral evidence must be direct. Direct means the person must be heard or seen by the person who is came here to give their statement, their version, but he must be eyewitness or he must directly hear it. Well, he heard directly. Suppose heard doesn't means that somebody was seen and he told me. That is the hearsay, not directly heard. That statement is called hearsay evidence, because someone else was heard, someone else was seen such accident and he told me, and I am here to told the court that someone else was told me. That is not a direct, that is hearsay evidence. And in case of direct evidence, the person who is came before the court heard it or seen it or felt it. Felt it means like there is the blow of air. He felt that there is the flow of air. So he may make his own version that there was the night of Tufan. It was felt because Tufan cannot be seen. He can say that there was a hard warm up through the sun. It cannot be seen that. There is the warming, there is the unnatural circumstances. He may felt it, but directly he was felt. No one else was felt, and he told to person that there was some hot atmosphere there, and in such hot atmosphere I was doing so, and a person was doing so, and such and such. So it must be direct. Oral evidence are the best evidence, but they must be direct. Otherwise, if the person directly not accepted it, not got it, but he was given to another person and another person was given their version to the court, these are called hearsay evidences. So oral evidences, hearsay evidences, direct evidences, and circumstantial evidences. No one seen that the incident was happened, but the circumstances told him that the incident was happened, because there is so many facts are there, and one round figure was made, those connecting one with another and form a chain. If it is forming a chain and chain is not breaking out, these are the circumstances which told that the situation was such and such. These was the circumstances. So these evidences are called circumstantial evidences. No one directly seen it, no one directly felt it, no one directly heard it. So there is no eyewitnesses at all, but the circumstances told that such person is the accused. Such person does something wrong. Now, on such person, the court will ask their version and will came on the conclusion that he was the accused or not, he was the criminal or not, he was involved in such categories, such act or not. This is the court that will find out such a thing. So, circumstantial evidence, direct evidence, hearsay evidences, and corroborative evidences. Some directly evidences was given before the court, but there is not any corroboration. Suppose the dying declaration. We all very well knows that dying declaration is the hard type of evidences given before the court, because the person who was gone away means who was gone to the God, was given their own last version. Whether we have to decide that on the basis of dying declaration we may convict any person. Suppose at the time of his death, he was intentionally want to punish someone who was not guilty. Intentionally. Sir, on the basis of dying declaration we have to give an conviction. No. The dying declaration must be corroborated by the another circumstances. Like 1 year ago, they was fought it with one another, and it is evidenced that one person was fought it with another person, and he was giving him some loose statements and was told him that मैं देख लूँगा. If this type of a statement he was given 2 years, 1 year, 1 month, 6 months, 2 days before, and these are the corroborations. And someone else was seen that the person was going towards the victim, and he was traveling in the evening with the victims, he was served him the liquor. If these statements was given, but nobody was seen that he was murdered, such person, but the person who was the victim was given his statement as a dying declaration at the time of he was submitted before the hospital, and he was given his last statement in the hospital, but no one seen it. But the circumstances, but the corroboration was made by the statements of another persons, that in the evening he was traveling with that person. He was served the liquid to that. He was purchased a knife from such and such person. So what it is showing? These are showing that corroborative evidence is also there. So these type of evidence which corroborate the statement of another person is the corroborative evidences. So corroborative evidences may be given. One other type of evidence is the documentary evidences. Whatever wrote by the letter, whatever we was made before the registrar, whatever we was given in a statement before the court, whatever we was given in a statement in writing, or we was wrote in the diary, or even he was wrote the letter. These all are the documentary evidences. Whatever printed in the books, whatever wrote on the walls, these all are the documentary evidences. In case of documentary evidences, there is two type of evidences called primary and secondary. Primary evidence is the original copy of any document is called the primary, and the Xerox copy, the lithographic copy, or any type of photocopy or duplicate, these all are the secondary. So whenever we are given the evidences, documentary evidence before the court, the documentary evidence must be primary evidence. If in case primary evidence cannot be find out, then the secondary evidences may be given before the court, but the secondary evidences must be corroborate, must be supported by another evidences. So these are the documentary evidences, primary and secondary. And after primary and secondary evidences, we may say that these are the type of evidences what we have to read, we have to study in this lecture. And how these are relevant, that is also very important portion, because all the statements, documents you have to submit, you are going to submit before the court, but the court is of the opinion that these are not the relevant. So you may force the court that these are the relevant and you have to submit in the file. You have to put up in the file. If the wrongfully court decided that these are not relevant, but in your mind you think that these are very relevant and have to will play a vital role in case of decision of the case, then your case will be disturbed by the court itself. So you having a right, you having a teeth to told with the court that this type of evidences, this statement has to be submitted before the court in the file, because these are very relevant and may play a vital role for the decision. So we are having section 6 to section 55. Those make that what type of evidences are relevant. We can bifurcate this. We can divide these in 7 parts. 1. Section 6 to 16. It decides that what is the fact in issue. Section 6 to 16 deals facts connected with the fact in issue. Second portion, section 17 to 31. What is the statement? Statements about the fact in issue. Statements about the fact in issue. Means these are not directly connected with the fact in issue, but these are about the fact in issue. And third portion is the section 32 and 33. The persons who cannot be present before the court as a witness, but they having their own version through another persons. Like dying declaration, it is covered by section 33. So section 32 and 33 covered the statements, those cannot be produced before the court directly by the eyewitness, but through another persons to whom eyewitness was giving their own version. So this third portion covered. Fourth portion, section 34 to 39. These are the statements in special circumstances. Means these are not the general, but if the special circumstances is here, then section 34 to section 39 deal what type of evidences may be produced before the court in special circumstances. Next, Fifth portion, section 40 to 44, dealing with the judgments in the courts. Whatever, any judgments were given by another court, and such judgments are relevant or not. The statement before the court is relevant or not. In what circumstances the decision of the another court, the documents in the another proceeding is relevant in such matter, whatever we are going to deal. Now, sixth portion is section 45 to 51. That opinion of the persons, like opinion of the expert. Doctors who is doing, who does the PM, postmortem, they have their opinion. That in my opinion, he was, the person who was died, was served the poison. And what type of poisons was served? This is my opinion. But he cannot be decide that he was murdered or not. He may give their own version in regard of the opinion. The barking dog, some dogs are also may give the scientific evidences because their smelling power is so nice. They may find out that where the accused was run away, who may be the accused. So these all are the opinion and dealt by section 45 to 51. And the seventh one is section 52 to 55, that the character of the parties in the civil and criminal matters. Character are relevant or not? That he having some hobbies. The person is giving that he having some hobbies. But such hobbies are relevant or not? It will be, if it is relevant, then you have to covered by section 52 to 55. In what matters the character is relevant, in what matters character are not relevant. It will be directive by section 52 to section 55. This is the basic concept of Indian Evidence Act. And not even Indian Evidence Act, this is the basic concept behind the Evidence Act for whatever country it is. So now we will start section 3, the interpretation clause, and section 1, the basic concept. We have to start from the next lecture. Okay.